Imagine this. You've just escaped 400 years of slavery. You're free, but now you've got to build a whole new nation from the ground up. So how do you do that? How do you make sure you don't just recreate the same oppressive system you just escaped? Well, believe it or not, the ancient book of Deuteronomy offers this radical blueprint for leadership, one that was intentionally designed to be the exact opposite of an empire. I mean, that was the million-dollar question, right? The only model of government they had ever known was Egypt's, a top-down system where this one guy, the pharaoh, was seen as a god with absolute power. The entire nation existed just to serve him. So the challenge was just enormous. Could they actually build a nation that served the community instead of the ruler? And this is where it gets so interesting. The whole leadership structure in Deuteronomy is basically a direct response to the trauma of Egypt. It's this deliberate attempt to completely dismantle that pyramid of power they had just run from and to build something totally new, something founded on shared responsibility. Just look at this contrast. It's pretty stark. On one side, you've got the Egyptian model. Power flows from the top down. The pharaoh is the law, and everyone else just exists to serve him. But Deuteronomy's vision, it flips that completely on its head. It dreams of a society built on shared responsibility, where one single higher law is over everybody, yeah, including the leaders, and where those leaders exist only to serve the people. It's a total reimagining of how power should work. Okay, but before you can even get into who the leaders are, you have to lay a foundation. You have to ask, what is the ultimate standard that everyone is going to be held to? For the authors of Deuteronomy, this question was everything. The answer was going to be the bedrock of the entire nation. The whole thing hinges on this one Hebrew word, tzedakah, or righteousness. And it's not just about being a good person. You should think of it more like a builder's plumb line. You know, that weight on a string. It's the absolute, perfectly straight, unchangeable standard of what is right. And the idea is that this standard isn't man-made. It's a reflection of God's own character. So if righteousness is the fixed standard, the plumb line, then what's justice? Well, the Hebrew word for that is mishpat, and it's all about action. It's the work of pulling things back into alignment with that standard. When a person, or a situation, or a system gets out of whack and is no longer lined up with that plumb line of righteousness, justice is the active process of fixing it. And this is a really crucial point. Many English translations say, justice, justice you shall pursue. But the original Hebrew actually says, sadek, sadek, righteousness, righteousness. See the difference? The focus isn't just on the action of correcting wrongs. It's on relentlessly pursuing the standard itself. That's what creates a healthy society. All right, so with that foundation in place, Deuteronomy starts to introduce its leaders. And the first thing you notice is they aren't some kind of special elite class. No, they are meant to come from right there within the community that they're supposed to be serving. Let's just take the judges, for example. They were set up at the city gates, the center of public life. But their job wasn't to dispense justice for the people. It was to do it with them. Regular citizens were also responsible. They had to investigate claims. They had to serve as witnesses. Justice wasn't something you outsourced to the experts. It was a shared, community-wide duty. Okay, now we get to what is maybe the most radical part of this whole plan, the king. See, the authors of Deuteronomy were realists. They knew that sooner or later the people were going to want a king, like all the other nations. But the job description they came up with was for a king unlike any other king in the ancient world. I mean, the contrast here is just stunning. A typical ancient king, he was the law. His whole purpose was to pile up power, money, and military strength. But Deuteronomy's king is designed to be the exact opposite. He doesn't create the law, he submits to it. He doesn't stand above the people, he comes from among his brothers. And get this, he's explicitly forbidden from accumulating the very things that defined every other king. And these 3 rules were basically guardrails against tyranny. Multiplying horses was code for building a huge army and relying on military power, often by making deals with Egypt. Multiplying wives wasn't about love. It was about making political alliances with foreign nations that could compromise your loyalty. And multiplying wealth? Well, that's the classic road to greed and oppression. These rules were all designed to keep the king a servant, not a sovereign. And then there's this, which is just the most incredible requirement of all. The king couldn't just read the law. He had to physically, with his own hand, write out his own personal copy of it. The whole idea was that the act of writing it would embed it deep inside him to make sure he never ever forgot that he was under the law, not above it, so that his heart wouldn't be lifted up above the very people he was meant to serve. So when you put all the pieces together, the judges, the priests, the prophets, and this radically new kind of king, you start to see a completely different social structure taking shape. It is not the model they knew from Egypt. Not at all. The model they escaped was a pyramid. Simple. All the power, all the wealth, all the authority was concentrated right at the tippy top with the pharaoh, and the entire rest of society existed only to hold up that one single point. But Deuteronomy's model just chucks that pyramid right out the window. And instead of a pyramid, you get pillars. You have judges and priests, the king and the prophets, and they're not stacked on top of each other in a hierarchy. They are like pillars, rising up from within the community to support the whole thing. Power is distributed, and leadership is about service, not domination. As Dr. Cynthia Parker, a scholar whose work really informs this whole explainer, puts it, this entire system is a pretty powerful and intentional critique of oppression. It's a blueprint specifically designed to prevent the abuse of power, to make sure no leader could ever become another pharaoh. And that really leaves us with a pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? For all of our modern political ideas, we are still wrestling with the very same problems: the abuse of power, the pursuit of justice, what true leadership really looks like. So what can we learn from this ancient vision? A vision of a nation built not on grabbing for power, but on humility and on shared responsibility.